This video is part of a series of video shorts created from a set of masterclasses developed by Think Big and Young Rewired State. Each workshop was supported by an organisation with experience in the field. This workshop was supported by Rebel Uncut, a TV and film production company who've been involved with a number of large-scale projects. This video is based around GIMP, a powerful free tool you can use to manipulate images and photos. Today we're going to use GIMP to make a very simple logo in 2 stages. It has a floating text logo with a simple shape behind it. It won't be too flashy, but you will have learnt about some of the fundamental GIMP tools in the process. Remember, this run through is pretty fast moving. Pause it at any point to give yourself time to catch up. Ready? Let's go. When you open GIMP, it might not look exactly like in this video. GIMP opens slightly differently on different computers and operating systems. We can work around this though. Today we'll be using 4 different dialogues: the toolbox, tool options, layers and paths. Some of these dialogues may already be open on your screen. Have a look for these tabs. If you can already see them, then you're set. If not, click the Dockable Dialogues option from the Window menu at the top of the page and select them, and they should pop up. Once you've done that, from the same Window menu, choose Single Window Mode and everything should snap into one window, which makes life a little bit easier. Before we start, we need to open a new file, which is easy. Go to File, New. Some options will pop up. For this video, we don't need to change any of the settings. You should have a white rectangle on your screen. Stage 1. Step 1. Fill the page with black. To do this, we need to use the bucket tool from the toolbox. The toolbox does what it says on the tin. From here, you can choose a whole bunch of tools which let us carry out specific tasks in GIMP. We also need to make sure that black is chosen as the foreground colour. We won't be using background colours in this video. Go ahead and fill your page. Before we go any further, it's worth pointing out that if you make any mistakes, you can undo everything you've done step by step with Ctrl-Z on a Windows machine or Command-Z on a Mac. Step 2. Adding text. Now we're going to add some text to our logo. If you have a project name, you might want to use that. If not, use your own name, or anything that you like really. To add text, we use the Text tool. Click on it, and then click anywhere on your screen and a text box will open. Type in your project name. You're writing black text on a black background, so you won't see anything. We can alter this using the Tool options. Find your Tool Options tab and click it. There are different ways you can customize your text. This is useful to know. Tool options are different for every tool. For this exercise, make your text big and choose a thick, heavy font. White text works best for this. You might need to resize your box to fit the text in. Do this by clicking and dragging on the corner of a box. If you move the top left-hand corner, it will reposition the text on your page. Arial Black Heavy works pretty well for this. If your changes aren't having an effect on the text, you might need to highlight it first, just like you would in Word. Step 3. Creating a visible layer. GIMP and other image software programs work using layers. You can see your layers by clicking the tab that looks like a little stack of papers. Every new part of your image goes on a new layer. So far we have our black background on one layer and our text on a new layer on top of it. You can build up your image by adding new layers on top of other ones. By the end of this exercise, you will have several layers. You can see what is on a particular layer by unclicking other layers using the eye icon next to them. Isolate the text layer by unclicking the eye next to your background and you'll see just the text layer. The checker background means it's transparent. Make sure you re-click the background before you continue. This is a good time to point out that your active layer will always have a white outline. This is important for later. Right now we need to create a new layer from everything that is visible on the screen. From the Layer menu at the top of the page, hit New from Visible. You should get a new layer pop up in your Layers tab called Visible. Step 4. Adding effects and filters. We're going to add some effects to our visible layer. Gaussian blur works well for this exercise. Make sure the visible layer is active by clicking it in your Layer tab and then go to Filters, Blur, Gaussian Blur. A window will pop up with some options in it. You can change how blurry the blur is. I'm going with 11. Your text should now have a blurry edge. We're on our way to a finished product. Step 5. Adding a new layer with a colour filter in it. We're going to add a new layer and put a colour filter in it. It will cover all of our text. The reason for doing this will make sense later. Add a new layer by going to Layer, New Layer. Some options will pop up letting you change how the layer looks. Default is normally transparent, which means it's see-through until you put something on it. This is just how we want it, so go ahead and click OK. A new layer, very imaginatively called Layer, should appear in the top of your Layer tab. If it's not at the top, click it and drag it to the top. Now add a filter to it. We're using the brilliantly 80s Plasma. You can use a block colour if you want to by filling the screen with colour like when you coloured the background. To add Plasma, go to Filter, Render, Clouds, Plasma. It lets you change some of the options a bit in the pop-up window. Have a click about and see what happens, and then click OK. You should have a page filled with your chosen colour. Step 6. Adding a bump map. Now we're going to really start making use of our layers by adding a bump map to the visible layer, which is underneath our colour filter. Go back to the filter menu at the top of the screen, and this time go to Map and then Bump Map. Bump mapping adds an embossed look to the image. In this case, it will emboss the text, pushing it up through the colour layer. In the pop-up options menu, make sure Visible Layer is selected, as we want the bump map to apply to this bit of the image in particular. Hit OK. Your text should be showing through the colour layer like this. Step 7. Adding a layer mask. Layer masks let you change how transparent a layer is. We're going to use one to cut away the colour filter layer so only the text shows through. Make sure your colour filter layer is selected and then go to Layer, Mask, Add Layer Mask. From the options, we want full opacity. In your Layers tab, your mask should have popped up to the right of your colour layer as a white box. We're going to go ahead and use a layer mask. If you want to learn more about how they work, check out the GIMP tutorial. Copy your visible layer into the mask. Select it in the Layers tab, then hit Edit, Copy. Then select the layer mask and hit Edit, Paste. The white layer mask box should now have a copy of the visible layer in it. Pasting creates floating layers. Whilst there is a floating layer mask, you can't work on other layers. We need to anchor the floating layer by clicking the little anchor at the bottom of the Layers tab. You should now have your text in the colour filter colour on a black background. You can play with the colour levels to make the image really sharp. With the mask layer selected, go to Colours, Levels, and then play around with the input levels till you've got a nice clear edge. Step 8. Creating a drop shadow. Because we use layers, we could have our text with no background at all. If you unclick every layer except for the top one, the text should appear by itself. We're going to have a go at creating a shadow behind it to make it look like it's really floating. To do this, we're going to create a copy of the text in black behind this layer and then move it to the side slightly so that it looks like a shadow. This is easy to do. Just right-hand click the layer in the Layer tab and choose Duplicate Layer. A new layer called Visible Copy should show up in your Layers tab. Step 9. Invert the colour. To make the text black for our shadow, we're going to invert the colours. Make sure the Visible Copy layer is selected and then go to Colour, Invert. The background should now look white. If you isolate the Visible Copy layer, you will see that you've turned the text on that layer black. Step 10. Colour to Alpha. Now we're going to get rid of the white background on our black text. To do this, we're going to use the Colour to Alpha tool. Adding an alpha channel means adding transparency to your image. We won't go into it now. A quick Google will bring up loads of info on what they are and how to use them. Make sure your visible layer is selected from the menu. Go to Layers, Transparency, Colour to Alpha. If you use the eye symbol to view only the visible copy, you should now have a black rendering of your text on a see-through background. Step 11. Moving the shadow. We need to move the black text to the side to create a shadow effect. First of all, make sure you're viewing just the top layer with your coloured text on it, and your visible copy with your black text on it, using the Eye tab. Make sure your visible copy layer is selected in your Layer tab, and now use the Move tool to move the shadow layer. Holding down Shift will mean that you only move the active layer, the shadow. Click and drag the black text until you're happy with it. Don't move it too far or it won't look like a shadow, but will give people a headache to look at. Ta-da! You should now have a text logo with a shadow floating on a see-through background. To save it like that, make sure only the visible layer and the colour filter layer are visible, and then you need to export it. Make sure the file format is .png and hit Export. In the pop-up menu, make sure you click the Save Background option. Stage 2. Using Path Tools. Step 1. Using the Path Drawing tool. Now we're going to create a circle shape to go behind our text. Go ahead and start a new document to draw our circle, then we can bring in the text logo as a layer afterwards. We could do this the easy way, using the circle drawing tool, or freehand using the paintbrush, but this is a good opportunity to explore the path drawing tool. It looks like a little fountain pen nib in your toolbox. Path Drawer helps you to draw precise shapes with smooth, even curves. It works by creating curves and then altering the angles of them. First, you place points on your page. You have to join the first point to the last one to complete the shape. Once you place your last point, hold down Command on a Mac or Control on a PC and click the first point again. Now you should have a solid shape. If you don't join it up, every time you click you'll place a new point. You can delete a point by clicking it and then hitting the delete key on your keyboard. Once you've done that, you can create curves by clicking on the lines and dragging them out. Making a curve will create some straight lines that pop out of the side of your shape. Changing the angle of these lines will change the angle of the curve. You can also make the lines longer or shorter, which will change the depth of the curve. Have a go at creating a circle using only 4 points. This is a tricky tool to get used to, so it might take a while. You can find out more about the tool here. Step 2. Drawing the shape. At the moment, your shape is just a selection. In order to draw the shape, we need to stroke the path, like with a brush. Find the Paths dialog you created at the start of this video. In there should be an item called Unnamed, which is your shape. Any new shapes you create will appear here. Before we draw the shape, choose what colour you'd like it to be from your colour swatch in the toolbox. Then, right-hand click your unnamed shape from the list and hit Stroke Path in the pop-up menu. A box will pop up where you can choose to draw a line or draw with a paintbrush, and then a couple of other options related to it. I'm sticking with line, and I'm leaving the weight as it is because we're going to fill it in anyway. Click OK, and it should draw your shape in your chosen colour. Use the Bucket Fill tool to fill it in. If it leaves a white trace line, use the paintbrush tool to fill in the gaps. You'll need to add a new layer before you can do that. Now we're ready to add our text. Step 3. Inserting images. Now we're going to insert our text logo into the file. To add an image to an existing project, like we're doing, you need to add it as a layer. So from the menu, go to File, Open as Layer. Find your logo and hit OK. Your logo should now appear on top of your circle and as a layer in your Layer tabs. To move it to the right place, make sure that the text logo is selected and then use the Move tool like we did before. If you need to move your shape, make sure that the shape layer is selected and move that instead. Simple. You can resize your image using the Scale tool. It has a square with a white arrow in it. Make sure that the right layer is selected and then click the screen and it will put a grid over your image. Drag the corners to make it bigger or smaller and then hit OK. If you want to remove the white background, do what we did before. Select the layer with your shape in it and then go to Layers, Transparency, Color to Alpha. Export the whole file as a PNG and you are done. Good work! If you think that GIMP could be useful to you, check out all their other tutorials at gimp.org/tutorials. Cheers!